Walking every single day changed my body in ways that 10 years of dieting never did. And I'm not talking about the calorie burn. I'm talking about what happened to my sleep, my hormones, my anxiety, and the stubborn fat around my midsection that no amount of cardio classes could touch. We've all heard the advice: run harder, lift heavier, eat less, push through the pain. And look, some of that has its place. But what if the single most powerful thing you can do for fat loss, your hormones, and your mood is something you already know how to do, something you've been doing since you were about a year old? Here's what no one tells women. Walking does things to the female body that intense exercise literally cannot. And some of them kick in within the first 30 minutes. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what changes biologically when women walk every day, and I'm going to give you the exact formula for frequency, intensity, and time that makes all of it work. Let's start with the one that might matter most if you've ever felt wired and tired at the same time. Your body runs on a stress hormone called cortisol. You need it. It wakes you up in the morning and helps you respond to danger. But here's the problem. For a lot of women, cortisol isn't just spiking during actual emergencies. It's spiking during work emails, during school pickup, during that third cup of coffee because you slept terribly again. And every time cortisol floods your system, your body gets a very specific signal: store fat, especially around the belly. It also disrupts progesterone, which is the hormone that keeps your cycle regular and your mood stable. And it can quietly tank your thyroid function over time, making everything feel harder: losing weight, staying energized, even thinking clearly. Now here's where it gets interesting. A lot of the high-intensity workouts we've been told are the best for fat loss actually spike cortisol even further. Your body can't tell the difference between a spin class and running from a bear. It just knows it's under stress. And if you're already running on fumes, adding more stress on top of stress doesn't burn fat. It stores it. Walking does the opposite. Research from the Journal of Psychiatric Research looked at 50 people with major depression and found that 30 minutes of daily walking significantly reduced their symptoms. And depression is a condition women experience at twice the rate of men. The reason walking works is that it clears cortisol out of the bloodstream while releasing endorphins and something called BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of it as fertilizer for your brain cells. But the key is that walking does this without triggering another cortisol spike. Think of cortisol like a smoke alarm in your kitchen. High-intensity training keeps yanking the alarm over and over. Walking opens the windows and lets the smoke clear. And this matters even more for women because we produce cortisol more reactively than men, especially in the luteal phase, that second half of your cycle before your period. So if you've ever noticed that your workouts feel awful the week before your period and you actually gain weight, it's not in your head. Your hormones are fighting your routine. Walking works with your cycle instead of against it. Now, let's talk about something that might surprise you even more: sugar. A trial out of Duke University took a group of runners and a group of walkers and tracked them for 6 months. When they measured glucose tolerance at the end, the walkers didn't just keep up with the runners, they won. The walkers showed a 6 times greater improvement in how their bodies processed sugar. 6 times. Here's why. When you sprint or do intense cardio, your body burns through sugar fast. It's like throwing logs on a bonfire. It's hot, it's dramatic, but it's chaotic. Your blood sugar crashes, you get ravenous, and the cycle repeats. Walking is different. Walking is like a slow, steady pilot light. It trains your cells to absorb glucose efficiently over time, which means your pancreas doesn't have to pump out massive surges of insulin to keep up. And that matters because insulin is the hormone that tells your body to store fat. But here's the part that's especially critical for women. Insulin resistance is the root driver of PCOS, which is the most common hormonal disorder in women of reproductive age. When insulin stays high, it triggers the ovaries to produce excess androgens. That's what causes the hormonal acne along the jawline, the hair thinning on top of your head, and the weight that clings to your midsection no matter what you eat. Lower your insulin and you lower androgen production. Walking is one of the most effective tools to do exactly that. Not in a dramatic crash diet way, in a slow, sustainable way that actually sticks. So, Walking calms your stress hormones and resets your blood sugar. But what about your brain? This is the one that genuinely shocked me. A study out of the University of Kansas found that sedentary behavior accelerates the onset of dementia and Alzheimer's. And right now, nearly 2/3 of Alzheimer's patients are women. That's not a small gap. The reason has to do with estrogen. Estrogen is neuroprotective, meaning it helps keep your brain cells healthy and your hippocampus, the command center for memory and learning, functioning well. But during perimenopause and menopause, estrogen levels decline significantly. And when that happens, the hippocampus starts to shrink. Walking directly counteracts this. When you walk, blood is forced into the brain, stimulating the growth of new neural blood vessels and new cells. You're not just maintaining your brain, you're physically building a bigger one. Your brain is like a garden. Sitting lets it dry out. Walking is the sprinkler system that keeps everything alive and growing. If you're over 35, this alone is reason enough to walk every single day. You are investing in a brain that will still work for you in 30 years. Now, let's go from the brain to the heart and the bones, because these two are more connected than you'd think. We've been conditioned to believe that if you're not running, your heart isn't really getting a workout. The American Heart Association says otherwise. When it comes to preventing coronary heart disease and stroke, walking is just as effective as running, not almost as effective, just as effective. Walking widens your arteries, lowers blood pressure, and reduces bad cholesterol. It does all of this without flooding your system with the cortisol spike that comes from extreme cardio. You're scrubbing your cardiovascular system clean, gently. And here's the part that matters even more for women. Heart disease is the #1 killer of women, not breast cancer, heart disease. So this isn't a nice to have. This is survival. At the exact same time your heart is getting stronger, something remarkable is happening in your bones. Every single step you take creates a tiny electrical charge in the bone called piezoelectricity. That charge is a signal. It tells specialized cells called osteoblasts to show up and build new bone tissue. You are literally sending electrical telegrams to your skeleton with every step, saying, "Stay strong, we still need you." Women lose up to 20% of their bone density in the 5 to 7 years after menopause. That's osteoporosis. And here's the cruel irony: running, which seems like it should strengthen bone, can actually fracture bones that are already thinning. Walking builds them. It's the right amount of stress. Enough to stimulate growth, not enough to cause damage. Okay, this last section covers 3 benefits that sound completely unrelated, but they share the exact same root cause. Your gut, your spine, and your eyes all suffer when you stop moving, and they all recover when you start again. Let's start with your gut. Your digestive tract is basically a long tube of muscle, and it relies on movement to work. The contractions that push food through your system are called peristalsis, and they slow way down when you sit all day. That's why you feel bloated and backed up after a desk-heavy week. A 30-minute walk stimulates those contractions and gets things moving again. And women deal with this disproportionately. We are 3 times more likely to experience chronic constipation, and IBS, bloating, and sluggish digestion are some of the most common complaints during the luteal phase, and walking is one of the fastest, gentlest fixes. Now your spine. Your spinal discs don't have their own blood supply. They're like sponges. They only get nutrients when they're physically squeezed and released. Walking provides that pumping action. It circulates nutrients into the soft tissue of your spine, strengthens the muscles that hold you upright, and decompresses everything that sitting crushes together all day. If you deal with back pain, especially if you've been through pregnancy or postpartum, walking is one of the safest and most effective things you can do. And your eyes. This one sounds wild, but the mechanics are real. Glaucoma is caused by a buildup of pressure inside the eye, and walking acts as a secondary pump that helps regulate that pressure. High-intensity exercise can sometimes spike intraocular pressure. Walking stabilizes it. Think of your gut, your spine, and your eyes as 3 machines in a factory. None of them work if the conveyor belt stops moving. Walking is the conveyor belt. So now you know what changes. Your cortisol drops, your insulin sensitivity improves, your brain grows, your heart strengthens, your bones rebuild, Your digestion works, your spine decompresses, your eyesight is protected. That's not a small list. And it all comes from putting one foot in front of the other. But here's the thing. You can't just stroll aimlessly scrolling your phone and expect these results. There's a method, and it's called the FIT formula. Frequency, intensity, and time. Frequency first. The goal is every day. If that feels like a lot right now, start with 3 to 5 days a week. Even 10 minutes counts at the beginning. What matters is consistency. You are sending your body a daily signal to change. One long weekend walk won't do it. Frequency is what rewires your biology. Next is intensity. A leisurely stroll where you're barely breaking a stride, that's not going to trigger cardiovascular or metabolic changes. You need to hit what's called the talk test zone. That means you're walking at about 2.5 to 3 miles per hour. Fast enough that you could hold a conversation, but you wouldn't want to sing. If you can belt out a song, you're going too slow. If you're gasping for air, you're going too fast. Find the spot where your heart is engaged, but your body isn't panicking. And the third factor is time. The magic number is 30 minutes. That's the threshold where the biological shifts kick in. If 30 feels impossible right now, start where you are, but build toward it. Aim for 6,000 steps as your first milestone, not 10,000. You can always expand later. A few more things that make a real difference. Drink water before you walk. A dehydrated body can't do any of this efficiently. Swing your arms. It's not just a style choice. Arm swing engages your upper body and increases your calorie burn by up to 10%. And try to walk at the same time every day. Morning is ideal because sunlight plus movement resets your circadian rhythm, which controls cortisol, melatonin, and hunger hormones, all of which are cycle-sensitive in women. You don't need to run harder. You don't need to eat less. You don't need another supplement or program or app. The body that's been storing stress and holding on to weight and feeling stuck is already equipped with the only machine it needs, your legs. So use them. Start today. And if this changed the way you think about walking, subscribe so you don't miss what we cover next.